Elizabeth at A Literary Princess. If you are new here, welcome. I'm a 6-year PhD candidate in English literature with a focus on Victorian women novelists. And as you might expect, I love to read. Today I have a book review for you of Jane Austen's bookshelf, A Rare Book Collector's Quest to Find the Women Writers Who Shaped a Legend by Rebecca Romney. Now this book was sent to me because I won a Goodreads giveaway. So the publisher, which is Mary Sue Rucci Books, an imprint of Simon & Schuster, very kindly put up a giveaway and I won it. I never win anything. That was super exciting once I realized what was happening. Some of you may know I got this book randomly in the mail and had no idea where it came from. I had forgotten that I entered the giveaway and the email got lost in my inbox. So I was like, somebody's got my address, but they sent me a good book, so it's fine. I gave them my address. It really is fine. This was published in February of this year, so it is a brand new release. Rebecca Romney is, as the subtitle says, a rare book dealer and collector. You might know her from the show Pawn Stars. She is frequently a guest, or was frequently a guest on there. I don't think the show is still running. That's actually where I knew her from. When I was reading her, when looking at her author picture and reading the bio, it was like, oh, hey. Because I always love episodes where she's in it because it means we're looking at a book. And she's also very likable. So what is this book? It is essentially her journey to find the women writers who influenced Jane Austen and figure out why were they dropped from the literary canon. She goes through 8 women writers who Austen mentions either in her novels or in letters. We've got Frances Burney, Anne Radcliffe, Charlotte Lennox, Hannah More, Charlotte Smith, Hester Lynch, Thrale Piozzi, Elizabeth Inchbald, and Maria Edgeworth. And I just mixed up the ordering of Piozzi and Inchbald. Inchbald is first in the book. So she goes through biography of these women. She talks about some of their major works, but she also talks about her journey of finding the books themselves and hunting down certain editions and filling out what she calls Jane Austen's bookshelf, which has a ton of stuff on it by the end. And she actually has a list that's only a selected list of what she has. So apparently she has even more than what she just puts at the back. I have read 4 out of 8 of these authors, and 2 more are on my list to read later in this year. So of course, this was like perfect for me, especially since it is talking about why were these women dropped from the canon, which is a large part of what I do in my research, although I do the Victorian period rather than the late 18th and early 19th century. So what are some major themes? First of all is the suppression of women's writing. And Romney actually quotes a favorite scholar of mine, Joanna Russ, and her book, How to Suppress Women's Writing. She writes, I love the cover of the first edition of How to Suppress Women's Writing because it prints each fallacy that Russ dissects in the book. She didn't write it. I had seen this happen to Charlotte Lennox when critics claimed that Johnson wrote the penultimate chapter of Female Quixote. She wrote it, but she shouldn't have. It's political, sexual, masculine, feminist. I had seen this in Charlotte Smith's work, where Smith defends her political writing in the preface to her novel set during the French Revolution, Desmond. She wrote it, but look what she wrote about. The bedroom, the kitchen, her family, other women. I thought of Hazlitt's damning phrase about Burney, a mere common observer of manners and also a very woman. She wrote it, but she only wrote one of it. Who cares if Hannah More wrote a novel so popular that it laid the foundation for the national bestsellers of the Victorian era? It's not like she was a career novelist. She wrote it, but she isn't really an artist, and it isn't really art. It's a thriller, a romance, a children's book. It's sci-fi. Here was the fate of Radcliffe's Gothic romances, shunted into a separate category from the higher genre literary realism. She wrote it, but she had help. The success of Piozzi's Antidotes was attributed to the genius of Johnson, yet that doesn't account for it outstripping every other Johnsonian work of the 1780s in popularity. She wrote it, but she's an anomaly. And there's Jane Austen. So she's really addressing this. Why is Jane Austen seen as this anomaly, this like the first great novelist, woman novelist in the English language, when all these people came before her? Suppression of women's writing. I use Russ heavily in my dissertation, like really heavily, and quote actually quite a bit of what Romney quotes within that quote I just read you. The other thing that is very much related is issues with the canon. You know, we have this literary canon of what is supposed to be the best books, but Romney writes, "It is true that we have limited time to read among so many choices, and many defend the canon because it's the best that literature has to offer. But the more authors I sought from Austen's bookshelf, these women whom tastemakers removed, replaced, and effaced, the more I became convinced that there is no one book that everyone should read. If I had focused only on what we currently label canonical works, I never would have made it to The Female Quixote or to The Mysteries of Udolpho, books that I adored. Rather, I was coming to appreciate the canon more as a starting point. It was Austen who brought me to Lennox, after all. I had always enjoyed Austen's wit, and now I was enjoying the wit of her predecessors. To my surprise, I found that The Female Quixote was far wittier than any of Austen's novels. The best book is not necessarily the canonical one. What ultimately matters is finding books that are meaningful for you. Read those books." It's not that we should throw the whole canon out. It's that we can't treat that as the only good books. And Romney also addresses how this is how the canon is created through the editions that are printed. She writes, "Classic books can only remain part of the canon from generation to generation if readers can access the texts. To be reread, books have to be reprinted. Every few years, a new crop of reprints must reaffirm a book's classic status, or not, as each generation of a new tastemaker deletes or adds based on their own critical authority, often disguised as objective universality." Which is another thing that I address quite heavily in my dissertation. So with that first quote about the canon that I read, she says to basically find books you enjoy and read those books. So that's another big theme of this book, is figuring out your own reading tastes and focusing on those books instead of focusing on what you should read based on the canon. She writes, "When I began this project, Austen was my North Star, but as I progressed in my investigation, I gained more confidence in my own taste, and I didn't always need her anymore. Rather, I noticed that with each of my investigations, the world of women writers around her was becoming richer and more resonant." So through reading widely and figuring out what your taste is and which books you enjoy and don't enjoy, you are creating a richer background for the stuff that you have read. So if you can't tell, I really loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. I loved Romney's narrative voice. She is very conversational while still being scholarly. She has a huge array of different sources, from the original novels or letters or reviews of the book, to critical biographies, to scholarly articles, to even Goodreads reviews, which was really fun. It's a great bibliography at the back. I was looking through it and added many books to my Goodreads TBR based on it. And I also got to learn about rare book collecting, because she doesn't just talk about these women, their lives, and their books. She talks about the acts of finding these books and collecting them, and how does a rare book collector and dealer go about, like, where do you even go? Right? I knew nothing about rare book collecting, and now I'm like, oh, maybe I should start rare book collecting, as if I don't have enough books. But it was really interesting, and I really liked that personal touch that really no one else could have added to it. And I enjoyed that aspect of each chapter of finding these books with her, and which editions did she want, and why did she specifically want them, and the lengths she had to go to get some of them, and how much were they. It's so interesting. So yeah, I loved this book. It's my top book of the year as of right now. 5 stars. I would highly, highly recommend you check it out. If you are interested in Jane Austen and want to know more about some of the writers that inspired her, if you're interested in rare book collecting, or even just are like, that sounds cool, I want to know more about it, great starting point. If you like 18th and 19th century literature, I think it's a great book to check out. If any of these women are people you want to know more about, it's a great starting point for that. And you've got this amazing bibliography at the back to give you more detailed books on them. So thank you so much to Goodreads and to Mary Sue Ricci Books for giving me this, because I absolutely adored it. And I'm so glad that I got to read it. So that is my book review of Jane Austen's Bookshelf. Let me know down in the comments below. Have you read it? What did you think of it? If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more of my bookish content. It has been great chatting with you. I will see you soon. Bye.